Okay, so it's not a podcast, it's a YouTube video, or at least it'll be a series of videos that will set me up for the subsequent podcast. So the reason why I'm going this way is because I've just got a flood of ideas, and there's so much coming in, and there's so much that I have to process that I just want to get the information out there, and we'll deal with the rest later in a more organized fashion. But honestly, this is exactly my story, nothing more. I just want to share it because something different happened for me, and I felt compelled to share that story with you. So, some background context. So, if you didn't know already, I've always been a hardcore atheist. I mean, hardcore, almost to the point where, I've often called myself a militant atheist. Not that I was pushing my views on anybody else, but it's one of those things where I felt offended that somebody would actually come at me for being an atheist as opposed to the converse, and you can kind of understand how that dynamic often worked. But again, I've been on this journey for a very long time. I've been searching and searching and searching. All of my tattoos are kind of indicative of some of the things throughout my quest. However, I haven't been able to find that. And honestly, all the answers up until this point had always been satisfied via science. I could find answers in science and everything if I just dug hard enough. And so I didn't need any kind of supernatural explanations. The natural world was pretty well described, at least to the knowledge that I was able to comprehend. And really, in the workings of my mind, I'm thinking, man, what kind of asshole are you? I mean, if you could believe it, I actually thought you guys were egotistical. Because I'm like, how are you going to talk about you got this relationship with God that he does, whatever you were saying. Because in my mind, I'm like, I'm listening. You ain't saying shit to me. So what are you, it was absurd. It made no sense to me. And I'm not saying making any new declarations. I'm just saying that type of language was completely foreign to me. And I thought you were ignorant for using it. I mean, that's just honest. Let me give you an example. If you and I had a discussion in the past and the word, or any of these three words, God, faith, or love, was used in any kind of associated, encompassing way, I naturally thought that you were unintelligent in that particular realm. Like, you were just inferior to me as far as intellect goes, because I didn't believe that to be true, and I was 100% certain that was true, that there was no supernatural necessary, because all of the answers were in the natural world, and science was delivering often, all the rapid progressions in science, whether it be molecular biology, neurology. I mean, all of my questions had been answered. I mean, so much so that I wrote a book on my personal worldview, finding basically answers to questions about behaviors absent faith. I mean, that's exactly all my book was. I needed hard science to tell me how people behave certain ways and why. And I understood the why to the degree that all of us do. I mean, I know black and white. I knew right and wrong. I understand that there's always gray, except when we're talking about things that operate in the natural world. Now, I didn't see gray in that capacity. Those words, faith, God, and love, were very ambiguous because they were supernatural terms to me. I didn't have any other definition. I mean, let me give you an example. Like, love to me was nothing more than hormones and neurotransmitters. Nothing more. It didn't mean anything. I had a natural explanation. I didn't need the rest. So furthermore, I always thought people that relied on faith or God, again, however you want to use these terms, I'm only going to use the terms that are familiar with me, that are in my vocabulary. And so again, this is just to tell my story. You take from it what you wish. But those terms had natural definitions. I just thought you didn't understand them. And honestly, the fact that you needed them just told me you were weak. At least that's what I heard. And I don't mean like you're a weak person. I didn't mean that. I meant like in that capacity, you needed an extra tool in your toolkit that I did not require. And so it was gibberish. Did not need it in my life. Did not need God. did not need to hear your definition of love. But I mean, I think you always know that I don't have all the answers. I'm still seeking, and that's kind of what I was doing. And honestly, a lot of progress in my development as I was writing that book. I was finding solutions, and then I got it out there, and all my ideas are there, and I'm like, hey, this is it. You know, this is it. I got all of my life's riddles solved right here. I bridged, everything makes sense, but it didn't. Nothing made sense. Like, it's still, there was missing gaps, and I just always kind of expected that science would fill that void when it was time. But honestly, you knew something else was missing, and I knew that when somebody, like, intelligent people were telling me stuff, and it was really hard to say, man, I'm always smarter on this particular topic than every. In my mind, I'm thinking, surely I'm more intelligent than these people. I mean, look where I'm going to for my guidance. I'm reading books on Michael Shermer. I'm reading Richard Dawkins. I mean, all the neuroscience information that was coming out there, all of that was stuff that I was reading, and it was answering the questions that I had. So why did I need to look any further? And again, it just made me think that I was just that much smarter and that much stronger than the next person. So how could I obviously progress as a person? And honestly, I started to flounder. I definitely floundered from that period until that journey that I want to capture. Because while my journey is very personal and true to me, and it's going to be fooled with my flawed and biased explanations, I just want you to be able to hear what actually did happen to me to the truest way that I can tell it to you. And then hopefully little pieces you can pull out, and maybe something that might apply to you, or maybe you'll be able to relate to pieces, because I know that I wasn't the only one. I know that there's other people that think like me, that were searching like me, and had internal conflict like me. And so that's the people I'm speaking to, and anybody else who can tag along. I mean, it's just that when you get this kind of information, you feel compelled to share. And I'm just going to share my story. I'm not going to give advice, and if I do, dismiss it, because it's about as worth as what you probably considered it 2 days ago. So I'm on any topic. So I'm no more an expert on any particular topic. I haven't changed in anything. I really just changed in perspective, and maybe some of my thoughts and ideas will change because I haven't had the opportunity to reevaluate them with this new perceptual lens, if you will. But I just want to share my journey, and hopefully a little piece of that will inspire somebody else to kind of to tag along with me in this journey, and to include me in theirs. So that's right. So for context, I got to give you all the external variables. Basically, we're going to run this down like a science experiment. And true to being a good scientist, I documented everything. I'm talking everything. From the moment I realized something different was occurring to me, I was documenting everything. And I've still been, for the last 24 hours, almost copious amounts of notes, to the point where, again, some of you might have seen where I'm like, am I crazy? I'm not crazy, right? Because that's what I saw in the movies. The break from reality, and the schizophrenic guy scribbling in his journal, and leaving little post-it notes, and that was me. That's been me. I honestly been doing that kind of stuff because I was so afraid to lose any piece of cognitive information that I might be able to share that might paint the picture that I'm trying to portray. And so, yeah, that's kind of been how I've been shuffling around with my thoughts. And like I said, I'm not schizophrenic, I promise, but I'm quite certain that the person in charge of my thoughts is schizophrenic. So if that kind of gives you an idea of the kind of person I am, I'm just riddled with anxiety. I thrive on stress, or so I thought, and man, I just didn't realize how much all of that shit had been wearing me down. And so, again, there's going to be a lot of external factors, so that's why I think it's important that I emphasize this is my story, using my vernacular, things that I understand, like, and how I understand them to be true. So don't get twisted on that piece. I think just find the pieces that you can relate to it, and I really think that that's the loving piece that I hope to communicate, or at least that's the message that I got. And again, this is just going to explain my experience, kind of some of the variables that I've been going through, so that way you can kind of like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. Because I'm going to make associations and inferences that you may not necessarily agree with, or you might be like, yeah, I don't really see it. But for whatever reason, all of these things collectively were powerful enough for me to come with a certain conclusion, and one that was very, very, very difficult for me to say, and very, 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 very difficult for me to accept. I'm still very, very uneasy for what I was saying, or what I've said, but I believe it. I think that I'm going to tell you what my experience was. I'm going to tell you why I now believe in God, when I would have considered myself a hardcore, staunch atheist. And my opinions have changed on that. And so that's kind of the journey I want to share, and I think there's a lot of ancillary tales that I go. 42, I was just getting ready to retire, and my mind was 100% set on retiring, and I was so looking forward to it. And so all these things, these emotions, and whether they're relevant or how they tie in, I'm just going to kind of sprinkle some details in as they come. But all these things were factors, I believe now, but at the time I was just looking at it as like, man, I'm ready for this. I was 100% set on retiring. There was definitely some angst, and it wasn't normal, like in terms of like, oh, where you're going from something new to or doing something new, and so it's uncomfortable. It had nothing to do with that transition. I was aptly prepared, mentally prepared. I was ready, and I felt really strong about it. It had more to do with like purpose. I was really uneasy with where that was going, and but I'm doing my job search. Everything's going fantastic. I'm getting thrown numbers and salary numbers that I couldn't have fathomed, and nothing. While that was satisfying, it was feeding something. I would argue it was feeding my ego. It just wasn't satisfying. Nothing was satisfying, and then. It was on the day that I actually hit the button to solidify my retirement date, that it'd be approved, and it would have been within, a month I would have been out, that I got a call for an opportunity to move to Panama City, Florida, from, at the time, the Bay Area in Fairfield, California. But yeah, that was I got that call, and in my mind, again, everything's going great, at least on that front. And so why did I pause? I had like all this hesitation in me, and then I slept on it, and I knew. And that's just kind of how this journey started. And so I'm going to talk about from that piece to where I am now, and some of the things that were occurring. Another important piece to add to that is probably the last maybe 16 months of my life have been altered in other ways. So again, as I'm leading up to retirement, in fact, had already pushed the button and indicated that yes, this guy's going to depart and go look for a new career, and something changed, and that something was the Air Force court-martialed me, and or I was court-martialed by the Air Force, and honestly, I won't get into the specifics. The details don't really matter, but as you might imagine, there's a tremendous amount of stress that comes with that. There was I was balancing that while balancing I think a busy work life, nothing to complain about, but busy enough. And then on top of that, I was going through a divorce. I've been married or with my wife for 17 years, and at the time we were probably in the very beginning stages of our divorce. And so a lot of shit going on, man, a lot of stuff to process, but I was immune to it, man. I mean, it didn't bother me, or so I would say. And internally, man, I was dying on the inside, but I don't think I understood why. I just knew that was a stressful situation and you're supposed to deal with it. And so I just kind of soldiered on and didn't put too much thought into the things that, except where I thought I can control something. If I thought I had something I can actually do, then, obviously I would act. But for the most part, it was just, just taking and just trying to trudge along. And so lots of stress, man. That was stress, and not a lot of people that I was sharing that with, not a lot of confidence that I'm a private person, didn't want to get into any of that. And so I just think that I don't think that as much as I know it contributed to how I was feeling, it it was just different stressors. I mean, but definitely I was inside. It was building, and I knew it was building. I mean, and I've always had a quick temper. I've always had, just a really hard time controlling my emotions, and so this was different though. When I started to make my trek here, and you're thinking, okay, court martial's over. By the way, that was over. I was acquitted, and I'm set to retire. My wife and I are agreeable to everything in regards to the divorce. Everything's going in a good direction. In fact, if you would have asked me, prior to everything kicking off, I would have thought, hey, man, what an amazing life you got to look forward to. But I mean, things felt real empty. That's all I could say, and I could feel the stress mounting up, even though I just got relieved of these amazing hurdles. I mean, two huge stressors, or among others, were lifted off my back, yet I couldn't shake it. And so I'm still searching. I'm like, what am I missing? How do I get out of this? Why do I not feel like me? What's different? I plugged on, and my kids made the trek with me from California, stopping off in Ohio to see family, and then to continue on through Florida. And so sprinkled in there was a lot of good times, good memories, and a lot of confidence and positivity about moving forward, and just the things that lie ahead. But everything felt phony, and everything felt like that could like disappear in a minute, and riddled with anxieties again and all this other stuff. And so again, tightly wound. Even when I was having a good time, I'm tightly wound, taking time bomb, ready to explode, really ready to explode. And so and I don't mean like I'm violent, I guess, but not violent in that regard. I wouldn't hurt somebody premeditated. I was worried about my impulsive behaviors. Usually my long-term thinking skills could navigate their way through my primitive brain, but in this way, it was something was brewing, and honestly, I was gonna snap. And I actually had two vivid experiences that I could share, and maybe we'll make that podcast worthy. But just things where you're like, holy shit, you just responded inappropriately, and that could have really backfired on you. You're lucky somebody else is a little bit more mature. Anyway, but that was the story, and it was becoming really, really, really harder to manage. And so naturally, when you feel the way you do now, and all of that is gone, I can legitimately say I feel a lot happier, and nothing except one little piece changed. That's something that's pretty remarkable to me, and it's something that I'm still trying to wrap my head around and figure out, because everything else feels the same, exactly the same. I just started appreciating and recognizing things that didn't look the same to me before. They were very unfamiliar. I couldn't see that piece of it, and I don't know, man. It's just opened up a lot of opportunities for me, a lot of thinking and drive and passion, and how I want to respond, and so it's no more trying to figure out what is right and wrong. I think you just naturally know. It just made it so much easier, if that makes sense, and it will make sense. And that's part of the thing. Like I want to explain my journey to the point that you might be able to steal some of that and say, well, this part makes sense for me. And so to the day that everything happened, 5th of July, and this is how it transpired. So there's a lot of other stuff that, again, as I look back, I'm finding all these extra associations, but I think I'll just talk about the day, and then like I said, maybe we'll look at the other stuff later on together, break down my brain. Anyway, so I went about it. I was in a good mood, probably one of those days where you're a little extra gregarious, and so I went down to go look for a house, and extenuating circumstances are making it very difficult to find a house out here. In fact, I didn't think I was going to find anything all the way until October, and that was looking good. If you can, and so in here I'm staying in a hotel, and they're like, hey, I need you to get the hell out. And so it was stressful, a lot of stuff. So I'm like, man, wait a second, I'm trying to. It's just, with all the other stuff I'm trying to get accustomed to. I was like, then you're gonna throw this at me? Anyway, so I just decided, I did everything I could possibly do online and via communication on text and whatnot. And so finally, I just decided to go down there. And so I met a wonderful lady when I first got there. I won't get into use names or anything like that, but it's just amazing, just different energy. I don't know how else to describe it, but I like to think that we were feeding off each other's energy, and she did everything she possibly could to help me get a place, and really we couldn't do much except what I had already done, which then that was reserved for like August. So however, somebody overheard that conversation and passed it on to somebody else, and the next thing I know, two other ladies come out, and man, these people started working some real magic for me, and I really mean it. Like it was just a weird energy, and it felt good, but I nothing I can normally classify. I'll just be like, everybody's in a good mood at this particular juncture, and so I went about my day. Again, I think I was overly thankful and expressed my gratitude to the degree that even more than I normally would, because I was that happy. But the whole way home, I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, it just really ate at me that those ladies just really have no idea. There was nothing I can do to actually convey the level of gratitude I had, and that's a whole nother issue. I mean, I'm one of those people who have anxieties over how do you say thank you to somebody, because I don't want to just say it wrong or give any just wrong perception, and so oftentimes you just don't say anything, and that's how I felt with this. I was like, man, that wasn't enough. I really wanted to let them know how important that was, and that was just kind of the theme for the day. And again, I think I can get into a lot more of the specifics later on, when they may or may not matter to you, but I think and in the last video, I'll actually read to you what I wrote down, physical manifestations, things I was actually, to my observable knowledge, was able to record. That's going to be a little embarrassing, but whatever. I'm going to have to be stripped down pretty good on this in order and really vulnerable in order to kind of get my point across. But yeah, so I'll share that because I think it's got some entertainment value. I think some people will laugh at me, or maybe you might be able to relate. It really doesn't matter. I just want to be able to, like I said, it was a good scientist. I was jotting. I just wanted to get it all down, and then we'll figure the rest out later. And so I'll share that with you, but I'll give you kind of a generic one for now because I think that's just a piece of the story. Like honestly, like I feel embarrassed to use terms like God and faith. I don't know that I've earned that. I definitely haven't on the, to the degree that anybody else may understand them. It's been such a evil word to me, or those have been such bad words and contentious words that I just avoid them. And so I feel selfish using it, but I just don't know how to describe some of the supernatural, is what I would call it now, occurrences or ways I've been feeling ever since that, and whatever. Like I said, you help me put some classification to it, but but my perspective has changed, and it was dramatic. And like I said, I think I'll say stuff, overwhelming sense of euphoria. Well, science always explained that for me. I get it, and I know that analytical brains out there will be like, well, that's all that really was. But it's different, and I don't know how that lasting impression would just because it stuck, and now I'm like, every day I'm like, what's next? You're gonna pull the rug out from under me? It just feels too unreal, and so I just want to share that kind of joy, and I'm going to continue to chase that, and that's my message here. I want to share that love, and that's going to be how I'm going to continue to proliferate my own feelings. So this is very selfish in that it's therapeutic for me, But I'm hoping that you'll benefit from some of the things that I've been experiencing, man. That's really all I can say about that. So let me talk a little bit about what I think transpired, and again, I'll go more into depth on some of this stuff, and you know, leave it to your own. But yeah, so I just felt like something greater than me humbled me. That's the best way I could put it. I felt I was seeing things from through with humility, not everything directly, not anything somebody else did or didn't do or impacted me or was meant to impact me. It was not about me, if that makes sense. Uh, just that kind of humbling feeling, and I thought I was humble. I really did. I thought I was humble, and but I think that key, if you will, to the next level had to come from something outside of the natural world in order for me to progress. Again, I'm still processing, so I'm just saying some stuff right now, but that was just different. It was what I had been searching for. Like, it was like, now the puzzle is complete. And it's not complete, like, because the puzzle's complete, but I can continue working on the puzzle, whereas before, there was a missing piece. I didn't know there was a missing piece. I thought the puzzle was done. And then I was just scratching my head like, man, that just doesn't look right, man. It doesn't look right. The puzzle's not finished. But I thought it was finished. And so you can just imagine kind of the euphoria you have when you're like, man, this is it. This is my life's riddle. And now I can continue my work. And 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 that's the part that I hope will be a utility in this, because I have a newfound perspective, and I want to carry on what I thought was purposeful in the past when I wrote that book. I think this is the missing piece, and it was actually the missing piece in me.